My friends, welcome back to the Smoky Mirror Podcast. This is your boy, Big Smoke, checking in. I'm back at the studio. If this is your first time, the Smoky Mirror Podcast, the whole purpose is to bring on guests who can either educate or inspire the audience or just get you to think about the world in a different way. And today I have a mentor of mine, a great man in business. His name is Marques Jackson, and he's having a crazy career. He's been to a lot of big places. Right now, he's working for the Miami Dolphins, but he's been with Anheuser-Busch? Miller
Coors. They're now known as Molson Coors. So also before that was with the Coca Cola company.
Coke, yep.
And worked at Reebok and did some work on the agency side as well. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. Working in sports entertainment, working with an agency up in Connecticut, but I was actually based in Atlanta. And then before that, just internships, just grinding. I started off with the Washington Redskins, now known as the Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
In public relations / community relations internship, kind of right out of college. And so then that's was the evolution of my journey. And, I've kind of had we can get into this, but I've kind of had a little bit of an unconventional, I would say, path to get to where I've gotten. It's not traditional in any sense. A lot of people, typically start working for a team and, try to work their way to the brand side of the business, or start at the agency side and try to go to the brand, or they go from agency to the property. So I've kind of done the inverse of that. I started off, I guess technically on the property side with the internship, but I would say the bulk of my career has been on the brand side, and then ultimately had a chance about 3 years ago to transition to the property side, and here I am with the Miami Dolphins Hard Rock Stadium.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to get into that, because I think people are looking up to you, people like you, like, how did you get there? You know what I'm saying? Especially as a young black man, it's for like, sure. How can I get into a position where I'm, working for the Dolphins, not as a player, not as a coach, but, helping brand partnerships. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are things where it can seem like, wow, that's a nice job. Like, that's a career I want to get to, but how do I do it? And so I definitely want to know, like, did you always want to be in sports when you were in school?
It's funny, when I was in college, I was a sociology major, and I was really, my passion was culture, and understanding how culture moves and is influenced, and that kind of led me to, pursue a career in marketing, and I, went on to get my MBA from Boston College, and concentrated in marketing. What really, I say, got me into sports, one, I was a student athlete, college William Mary, but also I had a good friend and mentor who was a couple years ahead of me at William and Mary. He got a job with the Baltimore Ravens in their PR department, and I used to talk to him about, like, what exactly are you doing? Like, I see you on the sideline, I see you standing behind coach, this, that, and the other. And he gave me some, I would say, just some insight on, here's the scope of my job, here's what I do. I would pick his brain on, hey, summer's coming up, I would love to figure out a way to kind of get my foot in the door, get an internship to, at the time, leverage my major as a sociology major and do something that ultimately can help impact the community. And that's kind of how I started thinking about, I think, the business initially was, okay, like, I'm a sociology major. I got an internship with the Washington Redskins in their PR / community relations department. This might be something I could, evolve with. But then I started to, once I got in working for the team, I started to think about more broadly in terms of the overall business aspect of sports. And I always had a passion for marketing. And so what I decided to do is actually, go back to school, sharpen up my skill sets a little bit, right, in terms of, becoming a proficient marketer. And then from there, once I graduated, got my MBA, I got a job working for an agency, and it was an agency who represented many different brands on sports entertainment sponsorships. And that was really kind of my indoctrination into, I would say this evolution or this journey that I started to take. So at the time, I was working for an agency called Velocity Sports Entertainment. They're now known as MKTG, which is a very, popular, huge agency, global agency right now, represents a lot of brands. But back in the day when I started, I was calling on AT&T Wireless, and AT&T Wireless is, they're a corporate champion sponsor of the NCAA championship. So think about Final Four. At the time, it was the BCS national championship for football. This is before the CFP. I also did some work with the College Baseball World Series out in Omaha, Nebraska. So it was
a lot of work in that agency.
Yeah, a lot of work within that agency. So it was really, I had to, it was a fast moving culture, working with a lot of creatives, I would say a lot of bright individuals, had a really great client at AT&T, and they were investing in many different I would say aspects of sponsorship. So they had HBCU sponsorships. They had traditional sponsorships in terms of going back to the NCAA Final Four. And so I was part of a team that actually helped deliver the strategy in terms of how to activate, how to optimize these investments, how to get that ROI, back. So I did that for a couple years, and then got recruited to go work at Reebok from a guy that I knew previously, a gentleman by the name of Todd Krinsky and John Lynch, and
like from the Broncos, John Lynch?
No, John, just they're executives at Reebok, and they're still there. Actually, Todd Krinsky's now just got recently named the CEO, et cetera. So,
nice.
So anyways, did that for a couple years. They formulated a role called it was in their global sports and entertainment group. At the time, Reebok was a sponsor of the NFL. They had PSAs with the Allen Iversons and the David Ortizes, the Peyton Manning, Eli Mannings. So they created this role that was all about, how to optimize all these assets that they had, right? And how to, really bridge their brand marketing plans with these key guys, right?
Interesting.
And women. Venus and Serena. It was actually Venus at the time. And Thierry Henry, famous, former famous soccer player. So it was really kind of my job in conjunction with a few other folks just to kind of, develop what's the, the marketing strategy in terms of how to leverage these athletes and tie it back in to the brand campaign. At the time, the brand campaign was best on, best off, which essentially symbolized on-field performance wear and then off-field lifestyle wear, right? And so you think about all these athletes as a whole, they all have personalities and they all are, I would say, a lot more in depth in scope beyond kind of just, being an athlete and performing on the court or on the field. Right. So we was able to kind of create a really cool platform at the time. It was called Iconoclast, and it was really it was similar to Iconoclast. It was really about pairing athletes and entertainers up. And really showcasing who they were as personalities and overall human beings.
Cool.
And so, like, one example was like Allen Iverson getting with Nelly, and those two kind of talking about some of the commonalities that they had. AI wanted to do some stuff in music and in rap, as we all know he used to do, and then Nelly was a hell of an athlete growing up, played baseball, football, etc. So it was just kind of getting those personalities together, but talking, really meshing that world of they're not just performers and not just athletes, they're more in-depth people. So it was cool. It was cool to work on campaigns such as that, and then I went on to work for Coke and did a bunch of...
Pause before you go to Coke. I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So after you left William & Mary, how much time was it before you went to Boston College to get your MBA?
It's probably about probably about 3 years. I did about 3 years out of school, and I would, listen, I'm a huge advocate of get the work experience at least 3 to 5 years before you go back and get an MBA, because you draw upon some of your prior work experience. Obviously, you learn from your professors and your classmates and so forth. But I think having a baseline of, some experience underneath your belt, I would advocate to anybody thinking about, pursuing a graduate degree is to kind of get some of that work experience first, because I think it's going to make your experience that much better.
Yeah.
Once you're, in the program. Because
then you kind of know, like, what am I looking to do?
Right.
What are some areas I struggle in? And then you can really get the most out of that MBA.
100%.
I feel that.
100%. So it was cool. It was a great experience. I still keep in touch with a lot of my classmates. It was, I look back on that and I said, that was well worth the investment. So I'm happy where I'm at. So,
and then, when you're talking about the work, it sounds really interesting, but I'm like wondering on the day to day, like, so you're like, when you were at the agency, you guys are getting clients, they're saying, hey, this is what we want to do, make it happen. And then you're like working with creatives to get the vision.
Yeah. I mean, it was, not to get too in depth, but it was really about understanding the client's objectives. And, sometimes you would take the objectives, you come back with, let's call it, here's a recommended strategy in terms of how to leverage and optimize some of these sponsorships. And sometimes you didn't always hit the ball out of the park, so to speak, right? And so there was ebbs and flows. There was, as to be expected, you had to, massage some of the strategic work. So, I mean, it could be, I'll give you an example. It could be a Friday afternoon and you might get a call from the client and say, hey, I need, a point of view / strategy deck on by Monday, can you get that done? So it was a lot of those type of scenarios and situations. So, but listen, that was the I would say it was a good indoctrination in terms of, understanding this industry and how fast it moves and the pace it moves at, and I think, based on the brands and the partners that you work with, you're going to have, different, scenarios and situations that present themselves such as that. And honestly, there's not too much in this industry that surprises me at this point in my career.
You've been here for a while.
Yeah, I've been here for a while. So yeah, I think, I think just speaking in transparency, it's been a really good, last, let's call it 10, 15 years of just kind of, grinding but also it's been really interesting to see how far the industry has come. You think about where we're at now in crypto and metaverse and Web 3.0 and how brands are looking to get integrated into those platforms. Crypto is obviously a little bit different in terms of it's just a whole different segment and category as a whole. But you think about the metaverse and, again, Web 3.0. I mean, there's just a lot there in terms of how marketers and brands and properties, for that matter, and are thinking about the future and how that all translates to either delivering a unique fan experience or consumer experience, right? Because those are all touch points now that I think as marketers we all need to continue to think about in terms of charting the evolution. And again, I go back to, what excites me is always thinking about culture and thinking about how fast culture moves. And I feel privileged, to be in the position that I'm in today to kind of always, I would say, be thinking about that in terms of if it's, in the role I play today in terms of bringing in new partners and trying to think about, where there's synergies in terms of what we're doing with the Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium and in how brands are ultimately looking to elevate their brands in terms of how they connect with their targeted consumers. So it's a fast moving industry, but it's really fascinating in terms of just thinking about, how far we're going. Yeah. And I think, the other piece too is just seeing through the forest a little bit in terms of, down the line, what does the next 5 to 10 years look like? And I think, the brands who are, trying to get out ahead of that and thinking along those lines are the ones that are doing it really well. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was great context. And I do want to get into Coca Cola because I've been to World of Coke. Did you have anything to do with World of Coke?
I had nothing to do with World of Coke, but listen, it was Coke was an amazing experience. I actually had 2 stints with Coke. I worked kind of entry level, up and down the street, sales guy. Worked my way up. I got promoted a few times, and then actually left. That's when I kind of took some time to go back to school and get the MBA, and then I came back in a larger capacity. It was more or less a general marketing role, but it had sports entertainment as a I would say an element of the role. But yeah, it was a great time. It was, listen, an amazing portfolio of brands, and having the ability to kind of steward those brands within, at the time, I oversaw marketing for the New England region. So, and I did some stuff in Atlanta as well. So it was cool to kind of, I would say, leverage brands that are iconic and that are global in nature. There's Coca Cola was definitely a great experience and allowed me to kind of learn the CPG world. And
what's CPG?
Consumer product goods. So just understanding how Coke works with its bottlers, and that whole dynamic, and then understanding, how does that dynamic play out as it relates to on-premise accounts, off-premise accounts, and understanding promotional calendars, et cetera. And it was good to cut my teeth and really leverage some of my MBA experience on the second go round as a general marketer. And then also, I would say the icing on the cake was, I had the sponsorship piece too, right? I had worked on some of the Olympic plans, did some stuff with, at the time, a couple of, athletes like Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, helped put together, negotiate some deals with a couple of properties. So it was really, I would say a really enriching experience for myself and obviously help set the stage for other opportunities in the future.
It sounds really fun. Like the work you're doing, it sounds fun because it doesn't seem like any day is the same. Like it's always new challenges.
Exactly.
That was definitely something I was looking for when I got out of college. I was like, I want to be a consultant because it seems sexy and there's always new things happening,
For sure.
So yeah, that's cool. So Coca Cola, and then you went to Miller.
Yeah, I went to Miller. So I went to Miller. I went to Miller in Chicago, hometown, right?
So wait, people are recruiting you at this point? Is that how you're leaving, or like what's making you want to leave?
Yeah, no. So honestly, it was a recruiter that reached out to me at Miller, and it was a national role in their sports entertainment group, and it was in the beer industry. Beer is endemic to sports. It's endemic to just culture,
American
lifestyle,
life.
Right. So it was. I used to always joke and say I graduated from soda and went to beer, right? So
Literally,
things got a little bit more interesting. But no, I would just say it was fun though. It was, I had a chance to work across 19 different NFL partnerships. At the time we had approximately 16 or so Major League Baseball relationships. About 13 NBA relationships. We had a collegiate platform. And believe it or not, there was colleges that obviously that were doing marketing rights deals with a beer company, right? And so they understood that, there was an opportunity to, do some work with a beer company, but obviously in turn we had our responsibility platform, meaning 21 means 21 and all that good stuff, and how to educate. But yeah, it was great, man. I was working on many different deals. I did a deal across in international soccer with Liga MX, which is the professional soccer league in Mexico, on behalf of Coors Light. Worked on a number of platforms. If it was, again, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA. So it exposed me to a lot. It kind of really exposed me more so to the property side, to the clubs, teams, leagues. And, having, I would say, purview into, all the different various club partnerships and league deals, so to speak, it just, I would say it elevated, me as, a professional in terms of, understanding how to negotiate better, understanding, how to deliver a strategic plan as it relates to, working with a particular sponsorship. And so, I had an exciting time. My boss was, I'm still really, my ex-boss, I'm still really good friends with. He's a mentor of mine. And so I had a great experience. I was there for about 7.5 years, man. And then then I came to Dolphins, and I'll talk about how I got to the Dolphins, but like I've been with the Dolphins since 2020. So I'm in my third season. It'd be 3 years in January 2022. So, but the last, I would say, 7 to 10 years have been a blast, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Man, I'm in my 40s. So
okay, because you look mad young, and that's why I'm just like,
that.
you've done a
Appreciate
lot.
That. Yeah.
You look good.
Thank you.
Nice.
Hey, listen, I try to take care of myself. I don't know if it's it might be the lighting in here. I don't know. But,
so like even your face, you just look young. So
appreciate you.
Had to give you some roses on that.
Thank you, bro.
No, I love all the work that you're doing. I really like that you like tie in the things that you've done in the past, and then it helps you to just keep getting better. And it's like every time you just keep graduating.
Yeah, that's it.
Graduating from the Reebok to Coke, then Coke to beer. Well,
that's it. I'm a big believer in growth, and that doesn't necessarily mean always changing positions, but I do think, how do you challenge yourselves? How do you challenge the teams that you work with and work for? I think in order to grow holistically, you always need to be thinking about like, how can I do better? How can I continue to add value? That's one of the, I would say, overriding lessons in my life that I live by, is like how, holding myself accountable, holding my team accountable, pushing each other. Because I think, in order for, us to continue to set new heights and go to new limits, like you gotta continue to push yourself. And at the end of the day, I mean, this is sports entertainment. It doesn't matter what industry you work in, really, but like this is sports entertainment. There is kind of I would say, a competitive nature about it in terms of the business side, right? In terms of, so at the Dolphins, like we're always trying to evolve and push ourselves to go to new heights, new limits, and honestly, it's seeing the fruit that it's bearing now. Obviously we just the vision of our ownership group with Steve Ross and our CEO, Vice Chairman Tom Garfinkel. I mean, they're just amazing to work for, and it's certainly a trickle down effect in terms of how I would say the leadership team works and how we push each other to be our best.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what are the kind of projects you're working on now? Any like deals, any partnerships coming up?
I mean, nothing I can truly
disclose.
Yeah, but all exciting. I mean, the good news is really looking at a lot of opportunities for 2023 and beyond. And it's really it's a really interesting time. I mean, we're kind of like post-COVID, so like you're starting to see a lot of brands starting to ramp back up as it relates to how they go to market, right? And they're investing a lot more in the sponsorship because it's depending on their goals or objectives. You if it's elevating awareness, if it's trying to create unique experiences, if it's prioritization of South Florida in terms of how they look at the market as a whole. I mean, whatever the case may be, we're starting to see just, an uptick post-COVID in terms of just how brands are thinking about partnerships. And so it's exciting times, and certainly, cooking up some good work. I can't wait for 2023 because, I'm in a lot of exciting conversations.
Awesome. So what would be like your advice or recommendation for young professionals trying to navigate corporate America, and then just do it broadly, and then maybe specifically for as a young black man?
Listen, I think do your research in terms of if it's picking up an SBJ, which is Sports Business Journal, reading up on the industries, understanding there's so many different aspects of sports entertainment at this point, right? Like, you could be an agent, you can work in community relations, you could be a PR person, you can do what I do, work in partnerships, right? You could be a CMO of a team, right? You could be a CMO of a brand that focuses on sport. So there's many different avenues that you can go down. Mm-hmm. I think the advice I would give is start to recognize your strengths in terms of skill sets, but combine that with the research that you do in the industry in terms of like, what are the hot topics? What really excites you about the industry of sports? Is it the operation side? Like, do you want to go be a GM? Do you want to be a coach, right? Do you start thinking about that holistically? Because when you run into people like myself who've been doing this for a while, those are some of the specific questions I'm going to ask you is like, what exactly within sports do you want to do?
Right.
And I don't expect everybody to have like that clearly defined answer, but I would say in turn, like, do your research, do your homework, hone in on what your strengths and skill sets are as well. And like, how does that combine with the passion that you have within whatever aspect of the sports industry that you want to pursue. And, and again, stay abreast of the topics that are going on. It's not just about watching ESPN, right?
Right.
It's so, there's a lot of sports management programs in colleges, and there's, again, there's many different resources. I just mentioned Sports Business Journal, but I mean, there's, Sponsor United. I mean, there's just many different avenues that you can utilize to do your research and do some due diligence to understand the industry as a whole. Mm-hmm. And I think after you start to kind of, really ingrain yourself in that, then you can start to kind of think more about like, okay, these are some interesting opportunities, oh, wow, like maybe I want to be an agent. Right. Like, okay, this now, okay, if I want to be an agent, who do I need to speak to? What are some of the things I need to think about as it relates to taking some of those next steps? So I would just say start with the basics, do your research, start to think about what paths you potentially might want to go on, but also think about your strengths from a skill set perspective. And then that will help hopefully allow you to start to kind of filter what path or what direction you want to go into. And then, I would just say second to that is, reach out to, I'm happy to share my LinkedIn, whatever, feel free to reach out to me or, other folks that you may know that work in sports entertainment and just grab coffee, grab 5 minutes, and try to, have a conversation about, if it's what I do from a day-to-day perspective, how I can help, you in your pursuit of your goals and what you want to try to get accomplished. But yeah, I mean, those are some of the things I would say for sure that hopefully can help some folks take the right next steps to pursuing their career.
Very nice. We even linked up because you kind of had an interest. Like, Julia or my mom told me that kind of you were looking for like, do you know anybody in the South Florida area that I could be a mentor to? So it seemed like you had that drive to give back. Like, why is that?
I think it's in my DNA. I think coming up, I would say there's been some people who poured into me, through the evolution of my career, and I still stay in touch with them. And I think it's important to send that elevator back down, and particularly when I think about, young African Americans in this industry, the higher you go, like Jay-Z says, a few of us I see, and sometimes I think it's just about opportunity. And so I think if I have a platform, if I have some insight and knowledge or perspective that I can provide, I'm going to make sure I deliver that. And I just think that's just my duty. And it's not just African Americans, but I feel like a lot of young people in general, like that have reached out to me, like I'm happy to help out. But like I definitely think that's important to ensure that there's an equitable and fair opportunities for those that are seeking. a path. And sometimes I know from afar, like, not everybody knows a Marques Jackson. Not everybody knows a Jordan, right? Like some folks don't know in terms of like which step to take,
right.
To kind of start to pursue that. So I get it. And I want to make sure we can use these platforms like this and share some insight and perspective just to get folks started in the right direction.
Yeah, that's really real, because I have so many mentors that have helped me in ways that I didn't even know I could get helped, you know?
Right.
And so I really appreciate you making yourself available to me.
Of course.
And this is why I really wanted to bring people like you on the podcast, so that, if they don't know Marques, they can listen and say, oh, wow, like I didn't know you could even figure out the brand strategy and the partnerships. Like, that's a thing you can do for the Dolphins or for any sports team.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And I really want to get more mentoring and more of like a cultural, like, who's your mentor? Oh, this is my apprentice. Like, I want that to be a thing. Like,
100%.
We need it.
We all need mentors. We all need, I call them almost like your board of advisors.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in sports. Like, it could be, folks who giving you life advice, right? Like folks who, come from different other industries, but also share a really valued perspective in terms of how you should, deal with a situation or just general guidance as a whole. So I think that's very important. I think you got to be intentional about it. So it's not just about providing that label to people, but it's more about like, how do you initiate, how do you stay engaged? And it's not just about like you going to that person and asking them for something. It's more about like genuinely staying connected, right? And you being proactive about that, because honestly, typically 9 times out of 10, they don't really have, they're carving out time within their day to spend time with you.
Right.
And it's not to say that they're all high and mighty, but it's more about like they're typically very busy people. So I do think you got to be proactive in the sense of establishing a connection. Yeah. And again, it's not always about asking for something. It's more about just genuinely connecting. Hey, even if it's for 5-10 minutes, right? Like, I just wanted to check in, let you know this is what I'm doing. Like, I want to keep you updated on X, Y, and Z. Like, that's important. And I think more and more people, I feel like I teach a course in this, but like more and more people need to better understand that. And again, it's not just reaching out when you're in need or you're in some dire situation. Like, hey, so I do think there's a little bit of an art and science to it, but at the core of it, it's about being genuine. And it's about being proactive and letting your intentions be known in terms of what you want out of the connection as well. Right. I got people I tap into all the time, and that's free. It's no one. Right. You don't need to go to school for that. You don't need to. It is free to pick up your phone and dial 10 people and say, hey, this is, Jordan, I'm just checking in. I just want to, see how you're doing. Boom. Okay. Hey, I just want to let you know I'm working on X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm excited about this. Like, it could just be a check-in, you know? And again, that is free. And so I guarantee you're going to get a lot out of those connections. So I just say that stay proactive, be intentional. And I guarantee you it's going to help you. It's going to help you in your development and evolution in your career and just as a person. So
I 100% agree. And even like our relationship, I was like, damn, I haven't talked to Marques in a while. I need to hit him up and reconnect. And it doesn't even have to be, because some people could be intimidated. Like, oh man, like, what do I even say? It's like, it doesn't have to be a long conversation. There's just checking in like, hey, this is what I've been up to. Like, how are you doing? Your network really is your net worth.
100%.
And it's all about maintaining genuine relationships.
That's right. That's right.
I've seen like amazing things happen just because I knew people, or people knew me. Right. Like, people, oh, Jordan would be good for this, Like, and then that's why, like, oh, some people are calling me like, oh, such and such recommended. But I'm like, wow, okay, thanks.
Yeah. No, listen, it's great, man. I think I tell everybody just be intentional, and then if you're a mentor, like, continue to think about the younger generation who are hungry, right? And I'm not a believer in terms of having your foot against the door. Like, how do you send the elevator back down? How do you, provide some insight and perspective that's going to help somebody else out. And I take pride in that. I think about my legacy a lot, not necessarily like, I'm gonna be gone tomorrow, but I also think about like, what is Marques Jackson about? And again, I said like, giving back or sharing perspective or mentoring or whatever the case may be, like that's just a part of my DNA as a whole. So, if there's anything you can say about me is I'm going to pour my all into not only my job, but I'm also going to try to help others along the way. So
that's real. That's really real. One of the things I want to do is start like a mentoring program. Like I know we have big brothers, big sisters. As far as like business, you have SCORE that you can rely on, which I do take advantage of SCORE.
Right.
But I really, like I said, I really want it to be like a cultural shift where like everybody has a mentor, and if you don't, it's like, wait, you need one? Like I have one, or I know somebody.
Right.
And then like for me, like I have mentors, and then I try to mentor younger people.
For sure. Yeah.
It's weird because it's almost like they're not asking for it, but it's like I'm helping them do things. I'm kind of like offering guidance. I find it difficult to help people when they're not like, yo, Jordan, I need help, or like kind of understanding the relationship.
Yeah.
Because I started as a teacher.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I've always felt like, man, I really want to give back to the younger generation. Like I was really blessed coming up, so I want to kind of give that back. Sometimes I struggle with like, these dudes aren't listening to me, or like how do I get them to take me just a little bit more serious because I'm only a little bit older than them. I don't know. It's a weird dynamic.
That's interesting. I mean, I think some of that's on the mentee, so to speak, to take some of that food for advice, food for thought. Excuse me. You can only bring the horse to the they got to drink the water, right? So at the end of the day, like if you're doing your part, like you're doing your part. You hope that people start to listen and not just hear, but listen to you, right? In terms of some of the perspective that you're offering, and it starts to translate into, whatever the advice is or the insight is. But like, yeah, I mean, it's important to, on the mentee side, to be listening, actively listening, and not just, in one ear and out the other, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, really like truthfully translating that to, some action. So, yeah. So
you told me you grew up in Boston. Can you describe like your childhood a little bit? Like,
yeah, I mean, it was, childhood was, it was, listen, it's super diverse, believe it or not. I mean, I was in a program called MECO, which basically took inner city kids to suburb schools or whatever. So I did that for like the first 9 years of schooling. So obviously through my freshman year of high school.
What was that like?
It was different, man. It was like living in two different worlds, right? Because it was like, you're up at the crack of dawn. I mean, 5:30 in the morning, 6:20 a.m. bus pickup. Oof. You're not getting home some days until 8 o'clock at night. Then you're expected to do homework. But I just think when I take a step back and you think about the shift in worlds, man, it was like, I mean, not that I grew up in poverty, but it was definitely like a shift in dynamics in terms of going from, Mattapan, and a section of Boston where I grew up, and then going to this, a suburb, Newton, where I was at, which is, very, more affluent, wealthy, more affluent, and it was, and then not seeing people that look like me, and it was interesting, man. I think back on that, and I think for the most part it was all positive, but I also think about the psychology of some of that too, right? It was real deep in the sense of, self-esteem, how I felt a little bit inferior, particularly in the younger years, like, it's like, I didn't grow up with a half acre backyard, right. I didn't have, I didn't have, a big, 4-level home and this, that, and the other. Like, it was just, it was a challenge mentally. But I think what I was blessed with was to have a strong foundation in my parents that always instilled in me, hard work and dedication, and there was an expectation that I was going to college, and my father worked in education, and I was fortunate to have two parents who believed in the value of education. So they pushed me a lot. And so that's where that whole accountability factor comes from within me, is from the foundation that my parents had established. And then I had a group of friends that were also in the same program, same school, who came from similar backgrounds. And so we held each other accountable, and we pushed each other to make it through the system, and we got a lot of support. And I ended up leaving to go to, I got a scholarship to go to this private school, Catholic school, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I went down to smaller classroom sizes. I think it was like 12 students per teacher, whatever the case may be. But I built a lot of camaraderie with my classmates, and there was just a much more sense of community that I felt, and to this day, I still I stay ingrained to St. Sebastian's and outside the Boston area, which is it was a great school, great experience for me from 10th through 12th, and helped me, prepared me for college, William & Mary, Boston College, et cetera, and here I am. So. But yeah, no, it was different growing up, man, from those dynamics and so forth. And, it was definitely, I have friends getting killed, I had, there was just a lot of adversity that you had to deal with at such a young age. And, you think about your classmates that lived in this affluent town, and they had no idea what some of the stuff that went on that we had to deal with growing up in, inner city. So, it was just an interesting dynamic, but listen, it was all part of my growth, and I don't know if I would say I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it definitely, like, I established some lifetime friendships from there, and it definitely strengthened me for sure and prepared me for those next levels.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, education is so important.
Yeah.
Especially the quality and the caliber of the school. My mom, so I grew up public school my whole life until 9th grade.
Okay.
I made the switch. So my sophomore year was, I guess, my first year. I went to a Catholic school too, because my mom was not feeling the public school I was going to, and it was because we went to parent teacher conferences, and it was like strive for 21.5 for the ACT, and she was like, "What? We need better than that."
Right.
But it was kind of weird because it was like leaving all my friends that I grew up with, and then I go to like this private school. It's like obviously mostly white, and it was just it was weird because. Like, I wasn't as close with my old friends, and then I wasn't really close with these new friends either, because they already had
That's true.
And so I had a really weird feeling, because it was like I was too black for the white kids, but kind of too white for the black kids.
Yeah.
So I was like, damn, who do I hang out with? Motherfuckers are making fun of me, and I'm I'm all like insecure and self-conscious. And I feel like that, like, it was like an insecurity, or like I don't know what it was. Maybe inferior, maybe like I don't belong here, or like I stand out, or I'm different from the regular black people. I hated that was getting into my head.
Right.
But it stayed with me until I got to college, and I started intentionally getting more involved in like all black stuff. So like I joined my fraternity, I got involved with like Black Student Union, all that stuff, and I started to realize like I had a lot of like biases that that were unconscious. You know what I mean? And it was impacting the way I was looking at myself and the rest of the world. And I realized, I was like, damn, like I wasn't confident that I was a real black person, because I didn't have the same experiences as quote unquote regular black people. Right. And that was just a really weird, bizarre feeling. And now I'm like, anything I do is black. So it just really changed my perspective, because I used to always, like, I tell people this all the time, like I would have loved to go to HBCU, but I never even considered it, because I didn't want to have to act black or prove how black I was every day, because I wasn't confident. Right. But now I would go back and and do it, because I'm more confident with who I am. Like I'm not like, oh, I need to talk a certain way or dress a certain way to be black. Yeah,
and it's that is a little bit of a stereotype. Like you gotta talk with a certain rhythm, or you gotta walk with a certain rhythm. Yeah. But no, I mean, listen, we obviously all come in all different shades, formats, whatever the case may be. But listen, my brother went to an HBCU, my cousins went to HBCUs. I would do a HBCU if I had to as well. Like, not if I had that option.
Yeah.
If I had to do it all over again, I certainly would consider it. I think it's funny you mentioned the because when I went to a private school too. Like, I remember my first year, it was like, I was like, man, I don't relate to none of these kids. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, who? Like, I feel super different, right? And then, as I think sports, the beauty of sports, it brings people from all different backgrounds together, like working towards a common goal,
Right.
and that kind of was the bridge to allow me to like develop and cultivate relationships.
Me too.
You know what I
me
mean?
too.
And I think once people got a chance to like know me, like, and vice versa, like that's when, really true friendships happen. So it's amazing how, again, sports is at the intersection of that. But yeah, no, it's there's a lot of us that are navigating these, I would say, complex worlds. If it's, going to an all white school, black school, whatever case may be, like, I think it's more about just being authentic to who you are.
Yeah.
And again, like, I think at the end of the day, like, professionally, personally, I think being authentic to who you are is always going to be, I would say, the right decision. I can never imagine not being who I am in any scenario or situation. And, I think, standing on, values as well, working in business, you can hear about, see some, things that are probably lack integrity. So I think, making sure that you have a foundation of values and how you operate is important. And so I pride myself on that. And I think anybody who knows me, who works with me, will say the same thing.
Sorry, I got a phone call. Let me take this call real quick.
Okay.
Just in case. Don't worry, I can edit that out. Okay. All right, so we got about 9 minutes. I want to keep talking about kind of what this riff we're on right now.
Yeah.
It's like I hear about people who are like, "Oh, I want to bring my authentic self to work." I feel like there's different kinds of selves that you have, and sometimes we need to leave a certain self at work, but that's not being fake. It's just being professional.
Yeah.
How do you how would you kind of explain that dynamic where it's like, I want to be true to me, but at the same time, you're a professional. There's a professional setting. How do you kind of juggle those?
I think, it's a great question. Great. Listen, I deal with that daily, right? Like, you always got to be professional. That should be the first filter. I think sometimes it's like it's almost like how you say things, like how you position things. So there's a book called 5 Love Languages. It talks about like how couples get the best out of each other, and it's like how you say something is how you position it. You could say to be saying the same thing, but
right.
So that kind of translates to work a little bit too. It's almost like, you don't want to like go off the rails and like say something the wrong way, but I think you gotta think about how you position something, say something to get your point across in the most effective manner. Without part of working in business is you kind of got to check yourself emotionally. I feel like if you let emotions kind of drive how your decision making process or how you act, 9 times out of 10 it's not going to be positive. So I think you got to go through that filter of like, how am I going to say this, and ultimately what do I want the end result to be in terms of what you're trying to get across. And I think it's just a matter of that filter. And I know we talk about authentic self, but you can still say the same thing. You just got to filter it through a very professional lens and make sure that it just doesn't come across negatively. Yeah,
that's good advice. Because my mom, she like teaches or she coaches. Like, she's a business coach. Yeah, and so she does a little bit of adjunct professor on the side. And she said some of the young people were like, "You said be our authentic self." Yes, but
right.
Like, there's a few caveats, and sometimes you might have to do. be a little bit extra polite to provide some feedback or, something that you feel is a problem.
What I will say though, what I'm noticing too, particularly with this, Gen Z generation, man, there used to be this linear path of like, you go to college, you graduate from college, you get a job, you get a few jobs, you have this whole career. I'm starting to notice like, not that I advocate everybody go to college, if it's for you, but I'm also starting to notice like this, I would say hyper entrepreneurial world that we live in, right? Like it is, not to say that, that mentality, this is brand new, but I'm starting to see a lot more young people betting on themselves, right? In terms of like, okay, I don't know if I want to go work for Coke, like right out of college. Right. I actually might want to start my own beverage company. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to go work for Coke for a year or two and take that knowledge. And I'm going to build something on my own. Yeah. Right. And that's authentically me. That, this Coke stuff is great because I'm learning, how to be a marketer, how the system works between bottlers and servicing on-premise, off-premise accounts and promotional calendars, et cetera. But now I'm going to take that knowledge, right? And I'm going to go say, you know what, I'm going to go consult, or I'm going to go start my own, product. Yeah. And so I'm starting to see a lot more of, I'm taking chances and betting on me because that's authentically who I am. I defined system of like, go working for somebody or go working for, a corporate, like doesn't fit who I am or what my interests are. So, taking it to a business sense, I guess that I'm starting to see a lot more of that. And I commend that. I think people need to really hone in on that if that's where their passion is at, and figure out kind of how to do that.
I think the internet's done a great job of kind of showing you what's possible. Yeah. And then giving everybody kind of like just lowering all the barriers to entry. It's
that's
like,
right.
If you can convince people that your product is good, you have the way to market it to all these people, you have the potential to sell it to all these people, like you can set it up all on your own. So I do think, and this is another thing, people are seeing their friends and like people their age or younger get really successful, and they're like, damn, like I think I can do it too. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing, because for me, that's definitely something that's made me like ambitious, because I see other people doing things. I'm like, you know what, I can do it too. But at the same time, I feel like I put a lot of pressure on myself.
For sure.
So I'm like, man, there's people younger than me making way more money, way more successful. But it's like, why am I comparing?
Yeah, you shouldn't. I know it's easy. The natural human thing to do is like, oh, man, that person is, 2 levels above me making this, that, and they, oh, wow, they're younger than me too. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So I think we all got to run our own race. But I think it's all, again, going back to like, think about what your goals are, think about, what moves you, where your passion's at. Like, hold yourself accountable. Don't, I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in this like existing mindset, like, oh, I'm comfortable, or I'm good. Like, oh, I hit my results, great. Like, but no, like, how do you take it to the next level? How do you push yourself beyond boundaries that have been defined, right? Like, how do you, where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now? And like, what steps are you taking to get there? It's like that self-checking mindset. That's the piece that cannot go,
understated.
Understated. You got to continue to self-check yourself, because otherwise, you're not going to reach your potential. You're not going to, do as well in the job you're in, or, you're not going to be the best husband, not going to be the best father. You know what I mean? So it's always about this self-accountability piece of like, how do you continue to elevate and take yourself to new heights?
Yeah, self-awareness and just consciousness about how, like, where you're at in life, your actions. That's definitely a big portion that I feel is not emphasized enough. I feel like when we're learning how to be, we're getting regular. Oh, let me answer this real quick.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I had a little bit of a.
Everything all right?
Yeah, I had some an incident this morning.
This morning.
It didn't involve me, but it was just some drama.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's annoying. See, that's like I said, like, you know, you try to help young people out.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, I guess since we can wrap up with this might be interesting because I had to interrupt twice, but yeah, like, you know, I told you I was a teacher, and so I obviously have friends who are teachers, and so I had a friend of mine say, hey, you know, I have a friend, or you know, one of my former students is like, they got kicked out the house, they're homeless now, like, can they stay with you for a little bit? This was a year ago, maybe even, it's almost like 2 years now, like a year and a half ago. So we let him in. He was staying on our couch. He helped him graduate. Then he got a job. He was working. We had an extra room open, so he moved in. So ever since then, like, my friends have been leaving.
Yeah.
And then there's been more of like kind of my friends, like the guy who was on the couch, like more of those people have been, I've been working with them. And that's just been a lot of drama. Like, these are, you know, I grew up, or Teacher America, you're teaching in the, you know, low income neighborhoods. There's just a lot of poverty, a lot of lack of opportunity.
Right.
And I see a lot of unfortunate circumstances, whether it just be domestic issues or family issues, people going to jail, people doing crime, like just all types of stuff where I'm just like, damn, like I could have grew up in an environment like this and my life would have been totally different. Like I just got lucky being born into my situation. And since I do consider myself like pro-black and I really am responsible for the black community, I'm like, I need to take care of the people that I can. But at the same, there's a cost too. I'm like, damn, like sometimes there's some adverse situations that can occur. I just got to make sure I'm protecting myself and et cetera. But I do want to help out too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, sometimes, you know, you try to do the right thing, and you know, sometimes, you know, other things come with that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. I mean, but you know, like I said, it goes back to your intentions are right. You know, it's just sometimes there's other things that can matriculate.
Yeah,
so,
life can be hectic.
Life can be hectic.
But Marques, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
You shared a lot of perspective. You've been, I mean, in my life personally, you've been really helpful too.
Man, let's keep this going. Like I said, I think thank you for having me first and foremost. I think this is an amazing platform, and you know, I'm excited just about the future. I think, you know, in terms of not just so much for myself, but just the younger generation coming up. And I think if there's anything I can do to kind of continue to be helpful, if it's, you know, perspective, insight being shared, I'm going to continue to do that. So.
Dope. Oh, wait, before we go, I know you want to start like a networking event or something like that.
Yeah.
We definitely should do that.
So I'm you know, recent transplant down here in Miami. So one of my thoughts is, I'm going to get a networking event established because there's a lot of us that have recently relocated down to Miami. And so I think there's a great opportunity to do that.
Me too.
Particularly people of color community. So
if you're, I don't know if you already started planning, but definitely keep me in touch too. I'd like to help out any way I can.
100%.
For sure.
100%.
All right, Marques.
My man,
I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.